Hello everyone, Ruby Ravel here, coming to you live from the pastoral meadows of my sensual imagination, where I've been rollicking and running amok amidst the wildflowers, where, amidst my very relaxed and tranquil cogitations, I decided, you know what, after much consideration and long languorous mulling over, I determined that now is the right time to make a video about Mercury's transit through Taurus. Now, in medieval astrology, Mercury in Taurus was considered to be one of the placements of its detriment. So why should this be? Why should it feel that Mercury, the wing-heeled warrior, is so ill at ease in the slow, adagio-encumbered sign of Taurus? Well, that's exactly it. It's a conflict between two very different types of rhythms. When we think of the mind, we often refer to it as being the monkey mind, this thing that is sleepless, always chattering, always curious, always hungry for stimulation. The mind is this electrical interface between the outer world and the inner world. It can never really sleep because there's always more data, always more information to be mined and processed. Some of it much of it which may be relevant for our survival, but also a lot of it which just keeps us interested, which keeps us plugged in to the social network of reality and the rest of the world. There's always something to be thought about, there's always something to be analysed, there's always something that we can talk about. And in that case, Mercury by himself is like an electrical fever that never wants to run out. It always wants to be pulsating, it always wants to be running abreast and keeping a pace of all the delightful news and gossip that is always frenetically twirling around the world and our nervous systems by extension. But the mind, even though we rather erroneously connect it to our brain, it goes much deeper than that. Our mind itself, that seat of our consciousness, is invisible, it's formless. The mind can take on any shape we want. We can consider all kinds of crazy hypotheticals, impossibilities and improbabilities. And while those might feel very removed sometimes from physical reality, it is our ability to think abstractly, to think in these amazing parallel patterns that creates these amazing works of art, that gives us these strokes of genius, that makes us able to create amazing technologies, but which also gives us the inspiration to create horrible atrocities of infernally inspired torture. So there's a double-edged nature to Mercury, to the gifts and the curses that he can bring us. But the reason why Mercury, for all his wisdom and sometimes woeful ingenuity, is at ease in Taurus, is because Taurus is mostly concerned with the solid world, the physical world, the world made manifest, the world as it is, as it believes it always has been, and as it believes it always should be. Taurus likes a world that is absolute, that is fully formed and is totally unchanging, because a world of that nature is very easy to grapple with. If everything is frozen solidly in place, if you know where everything is, if everything is arranged harmoniously, well, then why disturb it with all this troublesome change, with all these crazy hypotheticals, with all these newfangled ideas? You know, can't we just enjoy things as they are without always having to chase all these crazy, luminous abstracts? So you could say that Taurus is uncomfortable with Mercury because Mercury can distort reality. Mercury can warp reality. Mercury can rewrite the world as a fantasy universe. And Taurus is like, this is taking me away from the earth. This is taking me away from the plain facts of the world that I see before me, that I feel with my senses, all these elaborate cogitations, they're just, surely that's just intellectual masturbation. I want to be focused on the practicalities. I want to be focused on the raw soil of reality, not chasing all these silly notions. You know, what has that got to do with farming and ploughing and having a nice picnic? All of these things are far too convoluted. Let's keep it simple. And if we keep things simple, we know exactly where everything is, and we don't have to worry about anything else. When I think about the energies of Taurus, I often connect them to the descriptions of the Shire that the hobbits live in the world of The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. And how these are creatures who are formed by habits, who like their ways, who like their customs, who like the regular repeated rhythms of things, who don't like nasty surprises, who don't like sudden adventures, who like to read books of their genealogy and heritage where they are safe and secure because they know all the sentences that run one after the other. There is a security in drawing a map of the world and saying, I know there's more, I don't need to know it. What practical relevance does that have to me? Let's just focus on the things that I know I do need to know, refine those and sink into them and build a good methodology around them, and don't trouble myself with anything beyond that, because then we're just making things complicated, and that is taking me away from just the raw sensual experience of connecting with the things that I have already learned to love. It takes me away from my deep connection with the things that I've already built up. Taurus wants to build structures. It wants them to last, and it wants to hold on to those structures. Whereas Mercury can build 1,000 structures and demolish them all and then transmute them into everything else in a single moment. That all happens far too quickly for Taurus. Taurus wants to build something, it wants to connect with it, it wants to sit with it, it wants to slowly touch it and caress it and let things just steep and grow naturally like they do in nature. You know, a field of wildflowers, a beautiful meadow of rape flowers, they don't grow in a night, they take time to come into fruition, and Taurus is happy for things to take that time. It enjoys that process of things slowly coming into becoming. So when Mercury is always rushing and racing about the place, Taurus says, slow down, stop chasing after things, let's just really stop and just think it through. So Taurus, as a thinker, likes to think slowly and carefully and cautiously, and to make sure that it has a full knowledge and appreciation of all the facts before it comes to a decision. Because for Taurus, any thought should always be connected with some kind of physical reality that we are striving to make manifest. It's not interested in thinking about something unless it's connected with something that it will actually do, that it will make, that it will construct. You know, it doesn't just want to intellectually masturbate. It doesn't just want to look at things for the sake of looking at things. It has to have some kind of meaning in terms of its livelihood in the outer world. But because it can take it such a long time to grasp certain ideas, because it's so connected with the things that it already knows, that it has mapped out in this very perfectly structured, harmonious Venusian universe in its mind, any new idea that it's confronted with, any new concept, ideology, or socio-political reality, it's always threatening to destroy that pastoral utopia that Mercury in Taurus has constructed in its mind. It's like, there we are. I've got all the neighbourhood laid out. I have returned back to old England. I have made the perfect Shire of the Hobbits. Oh, what? There's a sudden influx of new residents in, and they build all these kinds of weird houses that have nothing to do with our existing architecture. Well, that spoils the harmony of the grand plan. How can that be incorporated? You know what? The best thing is just not to let it in at all. And so this is where the stubbornness of Taurus can destroy and stifle the naturally curious and inquisitive powers of Mercury. It says, no, 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 I like things as they are. I like my mind as it is. Stop bringing me these crazy, turbulent ideas that are just going to upset everything. Just after I got it settled, go and buzz off there. You know, stop bothering me while I'm grazing happily in this field. And so Taurus can be, Mercury and Taurus can be really resistant to new ideas for very long periods of time. But patience and persistence are the best way to deal with this. And if something has shown that it has a lasting power, that it isn't just some crazy new fad that's just arisen in a night and then is going to be devoured by time the next day, then it might begin to be interested, because Taurus likes things that have longevity. It likes things that have a weightiness, a gravitas, a staying power to them. So, you know, it might resist an idea for a long time, but, you know, if it's still kicking around after a decade, maybe there's something to this. Maybe it's not just some new trend. Maybe this is something deeper and that's worth me looking at. And once those walls of stubbornness begin to come down and Mercury in Taurus says, okay, I'm going to look at this, it will actually look at something with astonishing thoroughness. If it's decided it's going to finally engage with a topic that for a long time it's just dismissed as newfangled nonsense, it will go out there and it will read every damn book on the subject. It will weigh and mull over every word very carefully and really thinking about it, until finally it might have that eureka moment where this thing that was previously just this very foreign and alien abstract is then turned into a physical reality. And that's one of the things about Mercury and Taurus, is that its thoughts are almost like a physical reality in itself. And in order for something to reach it, it has to be capable of being translated into its relationship with physical reality. And so once it has accepted a new idea fully after this long time of needing to be convinced and worn down, then that new idea can actually be something it commits to with incredible attachment and passion. Taurus wants to commit long time to things, which is why it takes these ideas so seriously. It's not like Gemini that can have a love affair with 1,000 different ideas every minute. It wants its ideas to mean something, to be something that can stay with it for its entire life, that it can build its life upon, that it can put as an intellectual flagstone that will incorporate everything that it does from now on. And if you take ideas that seriously, you're not going to rush into them, because it will have a big effect on how you live your life. You know, it's not going to, for Gemini, when it's more interested in the process of curiosity than the translation of that into practicality. But if you are concerned with that practicality, then yeah, you don't want to move your whole universe just for something that's later proven to be quite flaccid and empty. You want to see that it has meat, that it has guts, that it has marrow, that it has bones, that it's a strong enough titan, that it can stand up by itself and then also lift up and bolster your own life by the process. So even though it's a slow thinker, once it has got to grips with something, it can really run with it and do amazing, incredible things with it. But I also think because Taurus is a sensual and sensory and aesthetic sign, rather than an intellectual one, it can also have an appreciation for the beauty of language, but not just the beauty of language, but also the beauty of the spoken voice. Mercury in Aries isn't necessarily concerned about its voice sounding beautiful. It wants its voice to be loud. It wants everyone to hear it. It wants it to be theatrical and energetic. It wants everything it says to be this gauntlet that's laid down, which will start this wonderfully dynamic, pugilistic conversation, that it will make it feel vigorous and alive. You know, Taurus wants its words to sound like a caress, like the buzz of a bumblebee drinking the nectar from a newly bloomed flower. It understands that the sound of someone's voice can be as erotic and sensual as a well-timed touch, as a slow hand caressing your hair and helping you relax as you sink into your chair. Words and voices have a sensual weight all of their own. You know, hearing someone just chatter and blah, 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 and shout everything, that can be a bit distressing to Mercury and Taurus. Let's just have a nice conversation where I can enjoy the deep, rich resonance of your voice. Where, rather than just rushing on to say the next thing, we take our time with our conversation. We think, we observe, and we share. And then we enjoy the silences between those sharings, because those silences are what give breath and life to the music. We don't have to make noise just to prove that we're alive like Mercury and Aries. We can speak in other ways. We can speak with our bodies, with not just rhythm, but with the cessation of rhythm. This is also true of movement. I don't feel I've mentioned this enough in my other Mercury videos, but Mercury is also strongly connected with how we move. And I always find it amusing to watch the shifts between the signs and how people are moving when I'm out in public. I remember back when we were doing Pisces season, it felt like people got much closer to one another than usual. This is always good to watch in supermarkets. Like, it just felt like everyone was spaced out and dreamy and they're in their own world, and everyone was just kind of interweaving and just stepping over each other's personal boundaries. Now that it's Aries season, everyone's charging around. Everyone's getting to their goal and destination as quickly as they can. Everyone's driving much faster and more dangerously and riotously than normal. If anyone gets in the way, someone's going to get angry and irritable in a way that they wouldn't have a month ago, including myself. I don't drive, but I do get pavement rage. You better believe it. Whereas Mercury and Taurus, again, if it's going to walk, and there's many times it would rather just sit comfortably in its favourite armchair, it wants that walking to be a sensual experience, to casually stroll along with its hips swaying, and if there's a beautiful tree to look at, let's look at that beautiful tree. If there's some nice objects in an old-fashioned Victorian front window, let's have a little browse at them. Oh look, there's something nice over there. It's saying if there's something I'm going to see and relate to while I'm moving about, then I should stop, I should savor it, I should appreciate it. There's nothing Mercury and Taurus hates more than being rushed. Because being rushed is the thing that destroys serenity and sensual experience. You know, again, if the cow has found a nice spot in the meadow to graze and there's someone behind it saying, go on, get a move on, get a move on, get a move on, that's not nice. That's not sensual. That's not erotic. That's just annoying. Why are you being annoying? Just chill out. There's no rush. Let's take our time. And in general, with Taurus placements, the quickest way to annoy it is to force it, or to see its stubbornness is to force it to go at a speed that it's not prepared for. So, yeah, it likes to maintain its composure while it's walking. On a longer note as well, I should also mention that this placement in Taurus is happening for longer than usual. It's lasting till June the 11th because Mercury is going retrograde later this month, and it will enter into the shadow phase sometime this week. So even though it hasn't gone retrograde yet, you might already begin to feel some of the stirrings of that retrograde activity. And I find these pre-shadow phases can be interesting, that sometimes it almost feels like Mercury retrogrades come early, but I also find sometimes those pre-shadow phases can also be almost like the period of acceleration and mercurial success before the storm of the retrograde. Sometimes in those build-up periods I found that everything seems to run smoothly and I'm having lots of ideas and everything's just kind of running all together and everything's great, and then the retrograde comes along and everything does that 180-degree about face, and it's like the Two of Pentacles and the Rider-Waite deck where everything's shifting up and down. Anyway, I'm going to make like Mercury and Taurus and relax a bit now. But I hope you've enjoyed that video. I do feel some connection with this placement, because even though I have Mercury in Virgo, sign of its exaltation and rulership, it's also trine Saturn in the 12th house and Mars in the 3rd house. And Taurus rules my 3rd house of communication. So there is a sense that sometimes it can take me a very long time to be receptive to new ideas and a very long time to chew the fat of a novel concept before I really feel confident enough to speak about it with any kind of authority and conviction. But there we are. I've said it all, baby. I've said it all. I'm going to go back to my flower meadow. I'm going to eat some tulips. And I'll see you later in the week.